Well, welcome to the Multiracial Ministry podcast.
Yes.
This is our very first episode ever.
And I'm excited.
Man, we have been thinking about doing this for 2 years.
About 2 years.
And finally pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
Finally dumping that false humility and says, what do we have to offer? And just offering whatever we have to offer. So I'm excited. Today, we are going to be talking about multiracial versus multiethnic.
Yeah.
Now, why do we call this the multiracial ministry mindset instead of multiethnic or even multicultural? We break down the difference in this episode between those terms and give a few examples of how a ministry that thinks of itself as multiracial sometimes makes different choices than one that thinks of itself primarily as multi-ethnic or multicultural.
Right. So first, as we get into this, what would you say a multicultural ministry is?
A multicultural ministry, well, I think it's important to say that a multicultural ministry can be monoracial. Because people of the same race and the same ethnicity even can have very different cultures if they're, for example, from different generations, different regions of a country or the world. So multicultural has more to do with your practices and ways of relating than it does, aesthetics, music choices, all of that, than it does to do with your sort of appearance and how your appearance drives people to respond to you in the world.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is multicultural could be two white guys, but one from Ireland and one from England. They have two totally different cultures.
Oh yeah, especially if you talk to those Irish folks, they're gonna highlight that.
Yeah, so
sure.
You can have two black people, one from East Oakland and one from West Oakland, that are very different.
Exactly. Yeah. So multicultural in some ways. I don't know if you agree with me here, but I think in some ways multicultural is a more inclusive term than multiracial when it comes to what most ministries actually are.
Yeah.
I think there are multicultural ministries out there that are not multiracial.
Yeah.
Like lots of them, most of them.
And multicultural ministry, what it does is it invites different cultural practices. It invites everybody to bring, like once a year they have at a church, they may have a multicultural celebration.
Yeah, right.
And where everybody is bringing their different foods, everybody is dressed in their different traditional garbs or what have you.
Yes.
But yeah,
exactly. And that's also, I think, an important point to make here is that we are not saying we do not call ourselves a multiracial ministry mindset because we don't see ourselves as doing multicultural work.
Right.
But actually, if you are exclusively thinking of yourself as multicultural, but not really thinking in terms of race, then you might just be doing those sorts of positive, culturally affirming celebrations, which are good and important and necessary.
Yeah.
But the problem is that you might be guilty of pretending that the people groups involved don't have real history with you.
Yeah. So why don't we call it the multi-ethnic ministry mindset?
Well, this one is a little bit more nuanced, right?
All right.
It's a little bit trickier. Multi-ethnic comes from the term ethnic, which comes from ethnos in Greek. It means nations or peoples. It basically just multi-ethnic means that you got people from different national or ethnic come-froms in the group, right? It does a little bit of a better job at capturing the fact that that there's a history behind our identity. But as we kind of mentioned before, you can have different ethnicities within the same racial group, right?
Yep.
So you can have Ghanaian, a person of Ghanaian descent, a person of Nigerian descent, who are both Black or African American,
right?
Depending on how you identify.
Yep.
You can have.
I'm cool with Black.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
That's why I said. Well, I know you. Some of our listeners out there might not know that about you, so that's good to know. So it's, for example, like I'm Irish American by ethnicity,
right?
But culturally, really, I'm white American. Like that predominates what I come to a room with, what I come into a community with, and it predominates how people see me. People don't look at me and go, "Oh, you must be Irish American," unless I'm sunburned, and then people know I must be Irish American.
Yeah.
But
or when you leave.
Right, exactly. Or when I leave with an Irish goodbye. That's right. So yeah, and you know, you've got a lot of distinction, especially like within the Latino community, the Latinx community, right? Of you know, you may have a church that is Hispanic, but it's actually got many ethnicities within it. Right.
And so I can see a problem with saying multi-ethnic of us not getting at our history together.
That's right. Yeah, and we could just kind of move into these like cultural celebrations or an awareness of your history as your ethnicity and my history as my ethnicity, but forget that we actually have history because of the way race and racism has shaped our society.
Whoa, you getting ahead. You're getting ahead.
I may be getting a little bit ahead.
No. So
how has this shown up? I mean, to tell it. I want you to tell the story about that conference that we attended many, many years ago that kind of highlighted some of these differences for us.
Yeah. Well, we took some members of our new formed congregation or church to a conference, and it was a good job of what a multicultural celebration. I mean, they had flags from every nation all around the building. They had people from different nation and nationalities up singing.
Yep.
But needless to say, it was controlled by one group.
Right.
And that group was the dominant culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would even go so far as to say some of the speakers, I think, felt that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely that.
Because it was like...
Definitely that.
Right? It was like two different conferences happening at the same conference where like the conference leaders were like, multicultural celebration. But some of the conference speakers were like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to talk about like the real stuff that we're struggling with each other.
And they had excellent speakers.
Oh, yeah.
They had excellent speakers, but I don't think the speakers knew what they were getting into.
Yeah.
I think they put old switcheroo on them.
Well, right. Well, or maybe maybe people are just really expecting, on the one hand, a multicultural conference, and on the other hand, a multiracial conference.
Yeah.
And this was not long after Mike Brown was murdered. Right. I mean, there was the Black Lives Matter movement had really sort of kicked off, and was in full steam ahead. Yeah. So I mean, I can understand why some people would come into that going, well, we got to talk about this.
Right. And like I said, they did an excellent job celebrating the cultures. I give them that. Yeah. I give them that. Can't take that from them. They did an excellent job celebrating the cultures.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah, so multiracial ministry intentionally places the emphasis on race.
Whoa. Say that again.
Multiracial ministry, that terminology intentionally places the emphasis on race. So you tell us a little bit about why that's important.
Because power dynamics. And we would be foolish to think power dynamics are in operation everywhere but the church.
Yeah.
When we say multiracial, we're putting the emphasis directly on race, and I believe directly where it belongs.
Yeah. I think multiracial, it immediately brings up power dynamics, because power is the main issue at the heart, you might say, of why race exists. Yep. Why it was created as a way of stratifying society, so that some people could have power at the expense of other people. And it also, I think it also immediately brings to the forefront, because it's talking about power, these historical ways in which power has been abused, right? These historical tensions, historical in the sense of like far past, but also historical in the sense of very recent past.
Yep.
Even present power dynamics. And it does all of that while still including ethnic and cultural come-froms. Because if you got two people of a different race in the room, you can be pretty confident that they have some pretty different cultural come-froms.
Yeah.
And a different ethnicity.
Yeah.
Or different ethnicities, plural. So it's not more specific while excluding all those really important things about multi-ethnic and multicultural ministry. It's actually more inclusive, we think, that at least in the way that we've done ministry.
Yep. And listen to this. The term multiracial focuses more clearly on the operation of race, and it points to the necessity of seeing and addressing racial structure.
Right. Which is so crucial in the church.
Right.
It's something that we're going to be talking about in a future episode in season 1, right? Where we're going to be talking about creating systems and structures within ministries, within churches, that address the power dynamics of race.
Yeah. And I think it's being intentional about acknowledging the reality of race.
Yeah.
Acknowledging the reality of race and its basis for privilege and oppression.
Yeah. Can you say a little bit more? I mean, we're just spitballing here, but can you say a little bit more about why, not even necessarily as a pastor, but just as a Black man in the church, why it's important that race is acknowledged as a factor in a multiracial setting?
So, as a Black man, not as a pastor, I think race is important to acknowledge because, like you pointed out, our history together. And that's a history, no matter how we look at it, how we try to, it can't be ignored.
Yeah.
It can't be ignored. And race is important because it forces us, acknowledging race forces us to have those difficult conversations.
Yeah.
Those much needed conversations, those hurtful conversations.
Yeah.
Those heated conversations, but at the same time, the much needed conversations, so we could move together, watch this, as one.
Yeah.
Not a diverse group, but as a group of one.
Yeah. Now, it's only because I asked you to put your pastor hat on the back burner that you didn't do the 3-part alliteration. You said hurtful, heated, and then I was like, oh, he's going to say healing. He is going to say healing. But he didn't do it. I was deeply surprised, but I did ask you to put your pastor on the back burner for a second. Yeah. And that's, what you're talking about is leaning into healthy conflict.
Yes.
Which is a crucial element of any healthy church.
Yes.
But even more crucial maybe of a multiracial church or ministry. And we're going to talk about that in the first episode of season 1.
But, and I remember a time, an incident had happened with George Floyd, and we set up 3 meetings with our community, our church.
Yeah.
The first one was just for people of color only, for them to lament, for them to vent, for them to say how tired they was of this happening.
Yeah.
And then the next meeting, we invited the white people in.
Yeah.
And they lamented and they lamented with us.
Yeah.
And then we moved to a third conversation. We was just like, we got to talk about this. We got to have this conversation of race.
Right.
And I believe that opened a lot of doors. It freed a lot of people in our church, and it let them know that we cared about them, how they felt, and what they were dealing with.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and if you don't acknowledge the reality of race, if you only acknowledge the reality of culture, or the reality of your personal historical national background or heritage, then in moments like that, we can't actually see each other, because what we're dealing with is grounded in the reality of race. Even if that is a reality about our world that is broken, even if that system of race and racial oppression was created in sin and brokenness, it is the reality of our world and it impacts our lives. And so if we can't have that conversation, then we can't even see each other and what each other is really going through. Right. And that's actually something we're going to be talking about also this season, in season 1, about being lifelong learners of the other.
Well, and I know we're going to talk about it, but like, I consider you to be special. And I consider you to be special because I haven't met, or do I know, a lot of white people that think like you in terms of justice and equity and equality. And I just want to ask you, how did you get here? How did, like, what was that journey like for you?
Oh, man. I don't know if we have all the time that it takes to describe that whole journey, but what it was like. Well, for one thing, it's not over. And I think that's actually like a pretty important part of that. I think as soon as I'll just speak for myself as a white person, as soon as someone like me thinks that their journey in understanding race and racial dynamics is over, I mean, then it really is over. There is no way that I am going to be able to catch up to you, because I had to actually explicitly, intentionally look at these things in a way that you were forced to look at them your whole life. So you have a lot more learning under your belt, not just because you're much, much older than I am, but sorry, I had to.
It was low hanging fruit.
I got my first white mustache hair the other day, and so I just got to throw in as much as I can. Feeling bad about that. No, but also because like it's just been forced in front of your face your entire life, and it hasn't been for me. So I think honestly, for me, where it starts and where it started was a theological awareness that the Jesus that I follow, that I call my Lord, my master, is a brown-skinned Palestinian Jew, not a blonde, blue-eyed white European,
not Viking Jesus,
right. And at the same time, I was coming to some awareness of the fact that I actually had never been led, like really led by a person of color. I mean, had professors, but like really in a position of authority over me. And the only one that I had was Jesus. So I figured that I needed to be led by more people of color in my life. And as I started to put myself in places where I could be spoken to directly, they started telling me, hey, you need to just get closer to the pain. You're so far away from the pain. You just need to get closer to the pain. So I just kept asking, well, where do I go? How do I do that? And just kept following their advice.
Yeah.
So I really only have what I've been given by other people. But I think the core thing for me and for us, even as we have this conversation, is that we are not just doing this because it is the theme of the day,
right?
Or because in the 21st century in America, how can you not be talking about race?
Right.
We're doing this because we really genuinely believe that it is a core value grounded in the gospel of Jesus. That because of who he is, because of who the Son of God, the second person of the Trinity, decided to become as a human being.
Yeah.
We have to talk about this stuff today. We got a little notification. It's no better way to highlight the very deep, important point about Jesus than a Siri watch notification. Oh man, that's so funny. Well, this season, what are we going to be talking about?
So this season, we're going to be talking about leaning into healthy conflict.
Yeah,
that's one of our topics. We're talking about creating equitable systems and structures.
Yep.
And we're talking about becoming lifelong learners of the other.
Yeah, and so several other things.
Yeah, we got a whole lineup for them.
And we're going to have all of this conversation under the banner of one value.
Yeah.
One value. We have three main values, cultural values at Tapestry Church, which is the church that we pastor together. And one of those cultural values is going to be the focus of this entire season, and it's going to be the value out of which all of these practices come. And that value is overthrowing fear.
Overthrowing fear.
So that's what we're going to be talking about in this upcoming season, our inaugural season of the Multiracial Ministry Podcast.
I'm excited.
Very excited to do this with you, B.
Me too.
And
well, I'm very excited to do it myself, but I'm equally excited to do it with you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Nothing like confidence to make these conversations go well. And if you're there at home and you have enjoyed what you've heard, we would love to join you on this journey through season 1, Overthrowing Fear. Subscribe, share with your friends, share with other people at your church that you're participating in multiracial ministry with, so that together we can move forward as one community.
And even if you're not participating in multiracial ministry, if you're a homogeneous church that wants to move in the area of multiracial ministry, this podcast is for you too. So share, and we invite you to listen.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yep.
We'll see you in the first episode of season 1.